Hey everyone, how you going? So Keith Pitt's blapping his gums again. He's attacking Adrian Tantari, the state Labor member for Hervey Bay, in regards to the housing crisis. Now, I can't read the whole article because it's paywalled, but it's on the Fraser Chronicle page, just been posted, and it's also posted in the Courier Mail. Interesting, hey? So, their write-up is, he's been the target of relentless anti-cashless card campaigns, but Keith Pitt says the greatest social disadvantage is deepening on the state government's watch and has called for Hervey Bay's new MP to come out of witness protection. What do you think? So he's accusing Adrian of being in hiding. Adrian's not in hiding. Actually, I'm seeing him all over the place on social media. He's getting out and about with people. I've got a question for Keith Pitt. Why, on the 1st of January 2019, did the federal government cut the funding to the services that provided emergency rental assistance for people who were at risk of homelessness? Okay, so then why, over the last 3 years, have we heard in the federal parliament that federal government is cutting something like $44 million for housing to the states? Can you please explain that? Because in order for the states to be able to provide better or more public housing, the federal government has a responsibility to provide some money too. And just because in your budget you're saying you're going to throw $112 million out there somewhere, sometime, it doesn't discount the fact that you've already cut money every year out of the housing budgets. Now, you have a problem, Keith Pitt, because the cashless debit card's in town, and by the end of this month, it's going to impact 8,500 families. That's 8,500 families, of which there will be a percentage of those people that will not be allowed to pay their rents. Indue and Services Australia will not allow them to have a housing allowance, right? Many of those people, even if they do eventually get a housing allowance, they will be behind in their rent, they will be breached, right? And then they'll have the difficulties of having to transfer from Indue back to their account, back to the landlord's account, which is absolutely stupid considering originally they were just transferring from their own account to the landlord's account or the real estate account, you know. But now, because of your little baby, right, you know, Keith, what are you doing? These people have to put up with the delays. They have to put up with the declines. And when it declines, they have to get all the paperwork again, have to get a new rent certificate. That's pretty difficult to do if you're on a 12-month lease. Centrelink issue one Centrelink certificate normally. They don't do multiples throughout the year. And it must be really annoying for landlords to have to keep signing off on the paperwork on their lease all over again to satisfy Indue and Services Australia data collection, right, so that Domino can get all that information and all that free data. Okay? So, Keith, what are you going to do about the housing crisis in your region? What are you going to do about the fact that Indue is the latest barrier on top of everything else? On top of the rents going up stupidly past the cost of living, on top of the fact that not one person on a job seeker payment or youth allowance payment in this country can afford a single rental in this country. What are you going to do about it, Keith Pitt? There's no point chasing a state minister, right, and trying to blame him when it's your government, the LNP government, that cut the federal funding to the states. So what are you going to do about it? You brought the cashless debit card into this region, right? What are you going to do about that? How are you going to fix the fact that landlords now, once they've been through, right, all the trauma of late rents, unpaid rents, and people being evicted, and then they turn around and say, I'm not renting to anybody on an Indue card ever again. All right, what are you going to do to fix that? And Keith, in your own town, in Bundaberg, you actually have real estates that will not rent to anybody on an Indue cashless debit card. What are you going to do about that? Rather than chasing Adrian Tantari around the place, how about you focus on what your responsibilities are, all right, and start being an inclusive member, because you don't include half of your community. You block them, you ignore them, right? You've condemned them to absolute bloody financial misery on the cashless debit card. You've excluded them from your community, right? What are you going to do for those average people? What are you going to do for those casual workers? What are you going to do for those parents that are struggling out there? What are you going to do for the women that are fleeing your area from domestic violence and having to move out of the area? What are you going to do to help those people, right? When the IndyCard is stuffing up, when people leave Hervey Bay to flee a domestic violence situation and 2 years later still can't buy damn food on the card. Whose fault is that, Keith? You bought the card to the region. You landed that person on that card, and 2 years later she's still battling to be able to try and buy food. So, yeah, let's not go after Adrian Tantari, right? Because as far as I can see, on my social media, he's getting out and about quite a lot around Hervey Bay. He's not hiding from anybody. But you don't get out and about, and you don't listen to anybody, and you don't want to hear anybody, from anybody on Social Security. What is it Darlene says? Oh, ring the hotline number or go to Centrelink. Or what is it you said to me, Keith Pitt, in the park, in Memorial Park in Hervey Bay, Main Street that day? It's a government policy, nothing to do with me. See? You've learned to deflect just like ScoMo, right? Blame everybody else. Well, you can't blame Adrian for this. And yet, Adrian was a hero, standing up for the rights of the community, including everybody in his community. And he has his door open and listens to those people, right? Because I can tell you now, you made Sharon wait 4 months to try and get a 15-minute interview with you. And what did you do when she came? You left her with DSS staff and ran away. You didn't even have the common decency to hang around for your own appointment with a constituent in your town. Go figure. All right, so, yeah. There you go, Keith Pitt. All right. Eventually somebody will send me the write-up from the Courier Mail or the Fraser Coast, and I'll get to read the rest of the article. But I'm only going by the fact that you're claiming that Adrian's nowhere to be seen, and you're calling on Labor to fix the housing crisis. Well, then reinstate the federal funding and they might be able to do a bit more. Okay? But you cut people off at the knees. All right? It's worse than that. You tell them to pick them up by the bootstraps, but you've taken the bootstraps away as well. Think about it. See ya.